We're going to factor the greatest common factor today. So let's just remember something first before we actually get to factoring. Go ahead and write this problem down. 2x parentheses 7x plus 3. So this is multiplying using the distributive property. So we multiply 2x times 7x. 2 times 7 is 14. X times x is x squared. And then we have 2x times 3. 2 times 3 is 6, and then keep the x. Okay, so this is what we've done in the past. And so in math, you always learn to do something and you learn to undo it. So GCF is how to undo the distributive property. We're going to factor out the GCF. So step 1 is going to be to find our GCF. You make your factors list. Then you circle your largest common factor. Step 3, same as number 2 with variables. You want to look for the common variable. So if they don't all have an x, then you can't factor it out. If they don't all have a y, you can't factor it out. If they all have at least an x, you can factor that out. And when you factor out your common variable, you're going to use the least exponent, the smallest exponent. I'm going to put smallest instead of least. Smallest exponent. As long as they all have the variable, you use the smallest exponent as your GCF because they all at least have that. And then once you find your GCF, you write it down, and then you rewrite your expression, but with the GCF out front. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example for the one that we actually just did. So I'm going to write this, 14x squared plus 6x. Okay, so instead of rewriting those numbers, I'm going to put a line behind the 14x squared. And I'm going to find the GCF this way. I'm going to make my list. So I'm just going to look at 14x squared first. So 1 times 14 and 2 times 7. And then I can write down 2 x's. Did you make your list? Okay. 6, 1 times 6, 2 times 3. So then we look for, oh, and don't forget your x. There we go. So we look at what they have in common. So our GCF is 2. And then they both have an x, so we pick the least exponent, which is just an x. So I'm going to write it here, GCF equals 2x. That's what we were able to factor out. So then it tells us right here, you're going to write the GCF out front, and then inside the parentheses is going to be what is left after you factor it out. Factor, we could also think about it as divide it out. So 2x goes out front, parentheses. So we're undoing what we had. So 14x squared plus 6x. So we want to factor it out. So if I factored out the 2, I look at what is the match to 2. I'm going to underline it. It's 7. So 7 goes in the parentheses first. And then what's left on the variable? An x. Then I'll leave a space because I'm doing the blank and the blank because I have two terms. I'm going to leave a space and look and see whenever I factored out that 2, what's the match to 2 on the 6x? It's 3. So I put 3 here. And then I look at the positive here, and then there's no negative out front. It's positive, so I'll put plus in between the 7x and the 3. So put a box around that. That is what we are looking for. This is the factored form. 2x is a factor and 7x plus 3 is a factor. Look at what we originally had as our problem. Look, that was our original problem. 2x parentheses 7x plus 3. You distribute and you get 14x squared plus 6x. Then you go down here. When we factor this 14x squared plus 6x, we get 2 parentheses 7x plus 3. So basically we're learning how to go back and forth between two different types, two different forms. Okay, so we're going to keep on doing this until you get the hang of it. So let's go to the next page. Okay, 2x plus 16. Draw your line behind the 2x. Okay, let's go ahead and write all of our factors. So 1 times 2, and that's it for 2, and then an x. And then we have 16. 1 times 16. 2 times, do 16 divided by 2. Hopefully you know this. 8. And then you keep on going down or up numbers. So like 1, 2, 3. If I take 16 divided by 3, I get a decimal, so that's no good. Go to 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Okay, so we have the numbers, and we only have x on the first term. All right, so what do they have in common? What is our GCF? Just 2. There was no x GCF, so we're going to write GCF equals 2. So let's write it out front and put a parentheses. GCF out front, put the parentheses. And then the easy part, it kind of seems confusing at first, but when you look at it, I'm going to use my little laser. You look at what is remaining. Look at what goes with 2. It's 1. So that is what is going to be in the first spot. 1. Underline it. So you should have a circle for your GCF and then underline for what's remaining. So 1. And also the variables remaining. Underline that. X. And then leave a blank and look at what's with 2 on 16. It's 8. So we're going to write 8 there. Close your parentheses. And we need a sign between them. So the sign between them, it's going to be the same as long as this doesn't have a negative out front. And it doesn't. So that makes it plus 1x plus 8. But I like to take away anything unnecessary. And that 1x, the 1 is unnecessary. So I'm going to put 2 parentheses x plus 8. So all we did was we took 2x plus 16 and we divided 2 out of it. 2 divided by 2 is 1x. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Put a box around your answer. I'm going to show you how to check your work. I'm going to do it in a different color. To check your work, you would, instead of factoring, the opposite of factoring is distributing. multiply 2x plus 8, and we're going to distribute. That would be 2x, 2 times x, and then 2 times 18. 2 times 8 is 16. And that is what we were originally given. So we're able to check that it is correct. All right, let's go to the next one. Draw a line in front of the x, or behind the x. Okay, let's ignore the negative up front at first, and we're just going to focus on the 42x and the 12. So let's go ahead and write all of our factors of 42. So 1 times 42. Go ahead and use your calculator to find the rest of them. I'm going to help you out a little bit. I put some numbers up there. So you'll divide it. So take your calculator and say 42 divided by 2 to get the match. And then do 12. Okay, hopefully you have your list made. So what is the GCF? What do they have in common? They have 2, they have 3, and they have 6. So you pick the greatest, and that would be the 6. And then they don't have any x's in common. So our GCF is just, let me fix that real quick. GCF is just 6. So we're going to write it as 6 parentheses. And then you look at the 42x column and you look at what matches with our GCF, and it is 7. So see how I underlined 7? So 7 goes in the first spot. And then I still have to keep my x, so x. So 7x. And then I look at the 12 column and I have 6. What matches with it is a 2. So I put 2 after that, leave a blank. Okay, and what I notice at the beginning is that there's this negative here. Negative 42x. So I would have it like this. So let's go ahead and put negative 7x and carry down the plus here. That would be one way to write it. Y'all see? 7 parentheses, negative 7x plus 2. But that is not the correct way because mathematicians don't like that. They don't like parentheses, negative. So what we're going to do is change all the signs. So we're going to change the 6 to a negative 6, the 7 to a positive, and the plus 2 to a minus 2. So what we're really doing is factoring out the negative and changing the signs that are inside. Okay, so we can check our work. I'm going to show you just checking your work real quick. Distribute. -6, parentheses, 7x minus 2. We're going to distribute. Show checking your work. -6 times 7, -42x. And -6 times a -2 is plus 12. So wasn't that exactly what that is? So we just checked our work. Okay, let's do 2 more examples together. And then we'll practice. All right, let's go to this one. 36x squared plus 9x. Draw your line. Go ahead and write your factors down. All right, I have my factors list. I have my x's written. So I need to find the greatest common factor. So they have 3 in common, and they have 9 in common. So 9 is the GCF. But don't forget about the variables. We have 2 variables and we have 1. So we can circle 1 on each. So my GCF is 9x. So put the 9x out front. And then we've got to figure out what's remaining after we take the 9 out. So you look at its pair. So 4 matches with 9. And then we have an x remaining with the variables. So it's 4x. And then for the 9x, we have a 1. And then no x remaining. So it'd be 1. Close your parentheses. And then we look at our signs. So there's a positive 36 and a positive 9x, so a plus is going to go between them. Okay, then to check your work, go ahead and distribute. All you're doing is just making sure it goes back to the original whenever you actually do distribute. So 9 times 4 and x times x. 9x times 1 plus 9x, which is the same. So we just checked our work. You always wanted to go back to the same after you distribute. All right, let's go to our last one. This time we have 3 terms. All right, so draw your lines, and we're going to write our factors. Let's ignore the negative out front, but pay attention. There is a negative up front, so we're going to have to do like we did on the one right above it. Let's go ahead and write for 12. Don't we have the factors of 12 from the one right above it? Use that. 16. Go ahead and do that. I think we've done that one too. So write all your factors for those three. Okay, don't forget your x's. So the first term has x to the fifth. That means I'm going to write x 5 times. The second term has x squared, so I'm going to write x twice. And then the last term has x once. Okay, look at our list and see what is our GCF. What's the number GCF? 2? 2 the biggest? There's bigger. I see a bigger number. 4. Yep. It would work if you pulled out a 2, but it wouldn't be all the way simplified. So that's why you want to make sure you get the largest or the greatest. All right, how many x's can I circle on every single column? Only one. So our GCF is 4x. Okay, so put your 4x. Now, normally we just had 2 terms, so we had 2 terms inside the parentheses. Well, now we have 3 terms, so we're going to have 3 terms inside the parentheses. So the first one is going to be what matches with 4 to make 12. It's 3. How many x's aren't circled? 4, so we do x4, x to the 4th power. And then the next one, 5, x. Then the next one, 4. Close your parentheses. Okay, remember how on the last one we went ahead and wrote the negative in front or right behind the parentheses, and I said mathematicians don't like that? So don't even do that. Go ahead and pull out the negative here and change all your signs. So this is positive, so it'll go negative. This is positive, so it'll go negative. So if you have a negative up front, you automatically know all the signs inside are going to change from what they originally were. Okay, and then you can distribute to check your work.